Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. If you've noticed in the last week, I haven't done a video, and I purposely took some time off. About once a quarter, I try to take a step back for about a week or so and just kind of reevaluate how things are going on the channel. And in light of that, I did a video 6 months ago called the 5 Immutable Prepper Laws for 2021. And I'll put a link up in the cards above if you want to check that video out. And in that video, I laid out 5 goals that I was going to set for this year. And what we'll do in this video is I'll kind of recap where my progress is on these different projects, how I've done. It's just kind of a introspective video that I want to just sit down and take a look at where things have gone over the last 6 months. Have I met certain goals? And I've made some tweaks and some adjustments to things I want to accomplish in the remaining of this remaining time that I have in this year, in line with my original goals. And I've made some additional goals that I've set for this year. And again, the point of this video is really just to kind of take a look at where things have been, where things are going, and just take time to kind of reflect and make sure that I'm staying on course. And I hope that you've got a similar approach, or at least some objectives you want to accomplish this year. And again, I hope by sharing this, I can kind of show you and take you along in the progress of how things are going. I had a subscriber email me today. His name is Richard. He lives down in the San Diego area. And we were talking back and forth. And his concern is, hey, is it too late to prep? And that's a question I get asked a lot. Things seem to be, escalating. There seems to be challenges on the horizon. And my advice is always the same. The best time to prepare is a year ago, 2 years ago. But the second best time to prepare is now. And when you look back and you think about the times where you might have said to yourself, hey, maybe I should start doing some things. And then 6 months later it goes by and you realize you may or may not have, done anything. Then obviously starting today and in 6 months from now, you'll be happy that you did, right? So on that note, the first goal that I really set out in the video that I talked about last year was learning how to produce my own food. I encourage my subscribers, you guys, to, see what you can do about learning how to either garden, or whatever it is you want to do to be able to produce your own food, whether it's in an outdoor, indoor garden. And on that note, this is one of those things where for the first time I can honestly say we've made a lot of headway as a family. My wife really took over the responsibility of gardening. A lot of times people ask, how do I get my spouse into prepping? Well, find a hobby or something that, hopefully interests them. In this case, I think for my wife, gardening has been very therapeutic. She enjoys going out, taking care of the plants, seeing them grow and develop. And I'll do a video on the progress here pretty soon, but suffice it to say, it's amazing. It's already producing a lot. And in all the years that I tried gardening, I might have been able to collect everything in one bowl of what I produced by the end of the year. And here we are at the beginning of May, and she's already, it's starting to produce quite a lot. The key that I found, and I would have to say, is good soil. In the past, we had not the best of soil, but this time around, we really made that a priority, and it's paid off. The next thing is, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I've gotten chickens, and I've talked about this on some of the videos in the past, but I usually post a little more there with what's going on with the chickens. But we finally got them outside about a month ago. They're doing well. My hope is by the summertime, they'll actually start producing eggs. But if you haven't ever raised chickens before, it's probably the easiest thing to do. I tend to start things and I get bored with it over time and I kind of neglect it. But the chickens, they're kind of an autopilot animal, I found them to be. As long as you give them food, water, an area to get around in, they do pretty well. And so, again, one of the things that always comes up inevitably when I bring up the issue of gardening is in the comments section, people always run down and say, well, it's a waste of time. If there's a major event, SHTF, people are going to come and take over your garden, etc. I've heard all the excuses. And like all things in prepping, people always, I find, try to make excuses for why they won't do something. There's always this attitude, well, if I do this, I'll fail or something will be taken away from me. My advice is the same as always. If you develop a skill, that can be taken with you wherever you go. If there's a situation and we have to evacuate, or we can't stay here any longer, well, we've developed that skill. And so I encourage you. Again, I realize our garden is not going to be enough to produce everything that we need, but it's a good supplement and it's a skill that's developed. So the second point is taking care of health. And that's something I brought up. And again, this is 6 months ago that I talked about those goals. In the last 6 months, there's been a lot of changes and things that I've had to work on. I, at one point, got up to 185 pounds during this pandemic and in the last year. And I've been able to use an app to help me, understand how my intake with food, develop, let's just put it this way, just get a better understanding of how I consume food and why I consume food and when I do. It's an app called Noom. I have no relationship with them. It's just I found the app to be very helpful. And I've been able to get down to low 170s, kind of gone up a few pounds, and I'll get after it again. It's just kind of a, go down, kind of up a little, go down. And so far, I've had a pretty good path with it, or a journey rather. And whatever it is that works for you, I would encourage, try something. I tend to be very active. Last year, and I shared this on my previous video, started running into some health issues, started working out, started having some joint issues, and a lot of it I put off. I just didn't want to see the doctor, and I ended up talking to a doctor yesterday. As a friend of mine recommended some things to go in and get checked. So I'm going to be focusing on that over the next few months. And I've never brought this up on the channel before, but a few people have asked in the comments section. I did get braces last August or so, or last August. I can assure you it's not for aesthetics. It's not just because I want a better smile. But really the issue came down to I had what dentists call a deep bite. Actually, my dentist is actually a subscriber here on the channel, a really neat guy. But what ended up happening was I had a deep bite. I was busting my teeth in the back over and over and over. I was, getting cracked molars. I was having to go in and keep replacing them. So by straightening out the teeth, in theory, that should eliminate that issue. And I also brought this up in a previous video. One of the things I'm trying to accomplish, I jog typically 5 or 6 days out of the week, usually about 2.5 miles every day. And one of the goals that I'm setting for this year, and I think after I do the video, I'll go and sign up. I keep saying I will, I keep forgetting. But I originally planned on doing a half marathon in June. It got delayed because they didn't know with everything happening with COVID. And so they ended up pushing it back to October. So that's something personally I'm going to be doing. I would encourage you, no matter what it is, your health issues or what challenges you face, find something that works for you. At the end of the day, if I couldn't move or if I was just immobile, I would at least focus on my diet, what I eat. That for me has been one of the primary reasons I've been able to drop weight, is just understanding what I eat and eating healthier. The next point I brought up was getting land. I mentioned, that I was going to start looking or hoping to find some land. I started shopping different land here in the area over the last several months. Just didn't find what I was looking for. We live in an area that there's a lot of fires. Fire season typically ends around October. This past year, it extended all the way out to December. Typically, we don't see fire season start until around July-ish or so. And they're already now beginning to announce that we're more or less in fire season. So I only say that because the area where I live, we have a lot of brush, and I'm probably going to move out a little more east. Again, my goal was to stay within an hour drive, and I'm going to start looking at the desert. I have a subscriber that I talked to. She ended up getting property out there with her family a few years ago, and I've learned a lot from talking to her and others about that area. And so it's within an hour's drive, and with my Jeep, I can go on certain trails and I can still access that if there was a situation where the roads were messed up and it was hard to get out of this area. And I ended up following a subscriber on my Instagram account, ended up talking to that individual. They're a realtor and they service that area. And so I'm beginning to actively look. And again, I don't know where your situation is. I know land's obviously not cheap. I'm watching it go up more and more here lately. But have a plan. If for whatever reason there's an incident and you're forced to leave your home, at least have a place or a plan of where you're going to go. The next one I talked about in my video a while back was developing a bug out vehicle. I did a video last year. I ended up buying a Jeep. I've always wanted a Jeep since I was a little kid. And for the first time, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get one. And it's been a fun vehicle to go off-roading. I'm continuing to work on it. It's more of a hobby, just upgrading it. But the beauty is it actually does serve a purpose if there's an incident. Like talked about a second ago, if I need a way to get out of town and the roads are not passable, it gives me the option with the suspension upgrades, tires, etc. that I've done, where I can easily go on certain trails that most vehicles can't. So I'll try to get a video out soon about that. It's something that I did an initial video. There wasn't a lot of interest, but I thought I'd go ahead and see, or at least release a video and see if there's any interest within the community. Feel free to post any comments below if there's anything particular you want to see about that, what I'm doing on building a bug out vehicle. The next point is investing. And like I talked about at the beginning of the video, there's an old saying, invest in let me back up. There's a saying within the investment community. Again, the best time to invest is 2 years ago, 3 years ago, etc. But the next best time is now. And I talked about a little in the past about my investments into crypto. I ended up going ahead and making a pretty sizable position, or taking a sizable position in crypto, and it's done really well. And what I'm trying to do next is pivot toward real estate at the end of the year, as I kind of talked about earlier. That's one of my plans, is again to pivot into real estate for different reasons. There's a lot of great reasons from an investment perspective. And again, when I brought this up in the past video, there's a lot of kind of rah in the comment section. Why waste your time with the real estate investments? If everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, why deal with it? And again, my advice is, if that's the case, so be it. I always work on preparing my other preps, but again, one of my biggest frustrations within the prepping community is a myopic view of investments and just finances in general. And I find a lot of times people only focus on the here and now and what's in front of them, and they fail to look out for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That if the whatever the grid, or we don't see a full-on SHTF scenario, how prepared are you for the future? And again, I always point over people to the Prepper Princess. She does a phenomenal job on just giving basic financial advice on helping people within this community prepare. Again, if you haven't done so, go check out her channel. Always encourage people to, there's a lot you can learn from her over there. So I will be shopping for land soon. That's something I always continue to work on. So if you live in the Inland Empire, Southern California, you're always welcome to email me at cityprepping@gmail.com. I've had a few people reach out and show me some interesting properties around the area, and I'm, again, always looking. So there's 2 other points. In the previous video, I talked about 5 things. And there's kind of 2 things that I'll add on in this video. There's projects that I'm working on pretty aggressively around the house. A water storage setup that I built in the garage. I'm going to go back and kind of restructure that. The original setup, I think it was a little weaker than it should, and so I'm going to add on and make the structure a little more solid. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see the different postings I have. You can, it's just City Prepping on the Instagram account. And so you can see the progress that I've made there and what I'm working on. I had a rain catchment system originally set up outside, and we just got rain gutters installed about a month or so ago. So I need to just simply hook that up. One of the things, although we've had great success with gardening, one of the things that we've been really working on is composting. It probably should have been the other way around. We should have been working on composting a long time ago, but again, this is just where we are right now. A side note, my wife, she ended up getting a lot of worms for our vermicompost. She bought a batch last year. They didn't do so well, and she bought a new batch about a month ago, and they're just taking off. So hopefully we'll have some progress there. And one of the things that we're doing next is we're setting up a solar whole house battery system. Started that contract a few months ago, and it keeps getting delayed. The latest they told me is that in this month they'll have it set up and ready to install. And I'm putting a 12 kilowatt hour battery backup system that can handle 8 kilowatts power coming in from solar panels, and it can run off grid. So if the grid goes down, there's a switch that basically flips over. The solar powers the battery system, and so we can still operate if the grid grid goes down. Most people don't realize when they get solar, they get net metering, which means you're powering the grid, not your house. So that's a project that I'll be doing some updates on here pretty soon. Again, as I talked about a second ago, you can follow a lot of what I do on Instagram. I tend to post there a lot more because it's easier just pick up my phone and take a picture and show what's going on. One of the things, the other projects, and this kind of ties into composting, is setting up a home biogas system so I can produce methane for cooking, and also get basically fertilizer for our garden. I've talked about it a little. There's a website where they sell these products. I've talked to the company. I might just go ahead and buy one. I was seeing if they were going to sponsor the channel for one of those, but I'll just probably go ahead and buy one because I'm actually kind of interested in producing my own methane. And the last point I want to make is, again, directions, kind of goals for the channel in this coming year. Again, it's not often I do these videos where I kind of set the path and kind of tweak it and show where things are going to go. But one of the things I've always talk about this, and somehow 4 or 5 months go past. One of the big concerns and one of the things that really is on the forefront of my mind is education, producing material that will be beneficial to the community. Skills, knowledge, these are important things. It's easy, there's always a debate within our community between should I buy gear or should I focus on education? Ideally both, but again, anytime you get knowledge, skills, it's often the case that you need less equipment, right? Because the smarter you are, the more you know, the less equipment and the less gear you need. And so we're, as a team, actively working on creating content that we're going to be putting on our website for people, whether it's building a bug out bag or whatever it is, that will hopefully take you through all the steps you need. I get a lot of people messaging me saying, hey, do you just have one definitive guide for this or that? So if there's something you want to see us produce content for, feel free to post that in the comments section below. We're going to read the comments after this video, and we're building the structure of what we want to create. It's probably going to be a solid 4 to 5 month endeavor to produce a good, solid kind of city prepping, urban prepping type of book. But it's something that I really want to invest on this channel. With the sponsors that I've got on this channel, different revenue that comes in, what I want to do is just keep pumping that back in to provide resources for the community. So, and finally, I'll ask, what are your goals? I apologize. I know I've been rambling. I ended up having a friend of mine I feel so bad over the other day. He's a prepper, and we hadn't seen each other probably about a year. He lives locally. And I ended up, finding myself just talking about all the things I've been, working on, thinking about, and I kind of felt bad for him after about an hour or so. I think he was just, I typically try to be very conversational and back and forth, but so many things have been on my mind here lately that I've been working on and trying to prepare for. But I always enjoy getting your feedback. What are you working on? What would you like to see us focus on with the channel in the remainder of this year? We're not quite halfway through the year. We're getting close. At the end, in about a month or so, we'll be about halfway through. But I'd really love to give your thoughts, your feedback, and what you'd like to see as we move forward. As always, stay safe out there.